When love becomes a wager, Jimin and Jungkook fight for the same dream and risk losing each other in the process. I won't let you take it from me. The words cracked through the rehearsal studio like a gunshot, ricocheting off mirrored walls and trembling beneath the hum of fluorescent lights. Jungkook's hand was still wrapped around the contract on the table, knuckles white, breath ragged. Across from him, Jimin stood unnervingly still, eyes dark, jaw tight, as if one more second of silence would shatter something neither of them could repair. Rain battered the windows behind them, soul blurred into streaks of neon and gray. The studio smelled of sweat, rainwater, and the faint citrus of Jimin's cologne, comforting, familiar, dangerous. It was never yours to claim alone, Jimin said softly. That softness hurt more than if he'd shouted. The contract between them was simple on paper, a solo global showcase sponsored by one of the biggest music labels in Asia. One performer, one spotlight, one chance to redefine everything. It was the kind of opportunity that rewrote careers and quietly dismantled friendships. For years they had been a unit, Jimin with his precise grace and razor-sharp intuition, Jungkook with his relentless drive and raw magnetic power. Together they were balance, apart they were rivals. But this was different. Jungkook's chest burned. He had spent nights in this very studio long after everyone left, dancing until his vision blurred, until his knees throbbed, until the janitor flicked the lights twice as a warning. He told himself it was ambition. He told himself it wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about proving he could shine without Jimin. Yet here they were. You knew how much this meant to me, Jungkook said, voice rough. You knew. Jimin's fingers curled slightly at his sides, a small habit when he was trying to keep control. Jungkook knew every micro-expression, every shift of breath. He hated that he still noticed. And you knew how much I've sacrificed, Jimin replied, or did you forget? The past flickered between them like broken film, Jimin hiding an ankle injury before a major performance so Jungkook wouldn't lose his duet partner. Jungkook covering for Jimin when anxiety clawed at him before live broadcasts. Shared headphones on late-night drives, laughter that felt like oxygen. This wasn't just about a stage. It was about identity, about who they were without the other. Thunder rolled overhead. You think I don't see it? Jimin continued, stepping closer. Every time we perform, you look at the crowd like you're daring them to choose you, like you're already alone up there. That's not fair, Jungkook snapped. Isn't it? Silence fell again, thicker now. The label had been clear. They wanted vulnerability, a story, two top performers competing for one dream. It was marketing gold. The executives smiled too easily when they announced both names on the shortlist. A test disguised as opportunity. Jungkook looked at Jimin and felt something twist in his chest that had nothing to do with ambition. Fear, not of losing the showcase, but of losing him. You applied without telling me, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin hesitated, just a fraction. That's what this is about, Jungkook whispered. Jimin exhaled slowly. I didn't tell you because I knew you react like this. Like what, honest? Like you own the dream. The accusation struck deep. Jungkook turned away, dragging a hand through damp hair. His reflection in the mirror looked fractured. He remembered being 17, terrified and hopeful, clinging to Jimin's presence like an anchor. Jimin had been warmth then, steady hands, encouraging smiles. But warmth can also burn. I don't want to lose to you, Jungkook admitted, voice almost swallowed by the storm. The confession hung between them. Jimin's expression shifted, surprise, then something softer, sadder. I don't want to lose you, Jimin said. The words felt heavier than the contract. For a moment, the competition dissolved. There were no executives, no audience, just two men standing too close, hearts beating too loud. Jimin stepped forward until only inches separated them. Jungkook could see the faint scar near his eyebrow from years ago, the one he'd teased him about. He could hear his breathing. We are not enemies, Jimin murmured. But we can't keep pretending we don't want different things. And if those things pull us apart, then we decide what matters more. The air between them changed, not hostile now, but charged. The truth was uglier than rivalry. They weren't just fighting for a stage. They were fighting for autonomy, for recognition beyond a shared narrative, for proof that their worth wasn't dependent on standing side by side. But beneath all that was something more fragile. Love unspoken and undefined, tangled in pride. Jungkook let the contract fall back onto the table. "You're scared," he said. Jimin's lips curved faintly. "So are you." Jungkook swallowed. He was terrified of standing alone in front of thousands and realizing the applause felt emptier without Jimin backstage, of winning and seeing disappointment in those familiar eyes, of losing and wondering if he had ever been enough. "I can't step aside," Jungkook said at last. "I'm not asking you to." The honesty in Jimin's tone cut clean. They stood in that fragile truce, rain steady against glass. No shouting now, no ultimatums. Just reality. "Then we compete," Jungkook said. Jimin nodded. "We compete. Not as enemies. As equals." The next weeks were brutal. They trained separately, avoiding shared practice times. The studio felt colder without their easy banter. Staff whispered, cameras lingered longer, every evaluation became a silent scoreboard. Jimin pushed his body with surgical precision, perfecting every line of choreography until it felt effortless. But alone at night, doubt crept in. What if he had always relied on Jungkook's intensity to amplify his own? What if alone he faded? Jungkook trained like a storm, raw and relentless. Yet in quiet moments, he found himself glancing toward empty doorways, expecting to see Jimin leaning there, arms crossed, offering that half-smile of approval. They were orbiting the same sun, just on different trajectories. On evaluation day, the auditorium lights were blinding. Executives lined the front row. The air smelled of dust and anticipation. Jimin performed first. He moved like silk drawn across steel, controlled, luminous, heartbreakingly precise. Each step carried years of discipline and a quiet plea, "See me, not as half of something, as whole." When he finished, silence held for a beat before applause erupted. Jungkook watched from backstage, pulse hammering. Then it was his turn. He stepped into the light and let himself unravel, power without restraint, emotion without filter. His movements weren't perfect, but they were alive, electric, impossible to ignore. He wasn't daring the crowd to choose him now. He was daring himself to exist without fear. When the music ended, his chest heaved. The applause felt distant and thunderous all at once. Backstage they met again, sweat-soaked, breathless. No anger now. Just recognition. "You were incredible," Jungkook said first. Jimin blinked, surprised by the sincerity. "You too." For the first time since the contract appeared, the competition felt clean, not poisoned by resentment, but sharpened by respect. The results wouldn't be announced until the following week. But something had already shifted. They stood there, not touching, yet closer than they had been in days. "Whatever happens," Jimin said quietly, "we're not a marketing story." Jungkook let out a soft, tired laugh. "No, we're worse. Or better." Outside, the rain had stopped. City lights gleamed against wet pavement, reflecting like scattered stars. Love had become a wager, yes, but not against each other. Against fear. And as they walked out of the auditorium side by side, not fused, not fractured, just choosing to walk together, they understood something neither had been brave enough to name before. Winning the stage would change their careers. But choosing each other, even in rivalry, would change everything. The announcement day arrived like a verdict. The company auditorium was suffocatingly bright, every surface polished to a mirror sheen, as if perfection itself were watching. Staff lined the walls, cameras discreet but unmistakable. The executives sat in the front row again, expressions carefully neutral. The air tasted metallic, like tension before lightning strikes. Jimin stood with his hands clasped behind his back, posture elegant, face unreadable. Only the slight tapping of his thumb against his wrist betrayed him. Jungkook stood a few feet away, shoulders squared, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the stage where their names would be called. Neither looked at the other. "We thank both performers," the director began smoothly, voice amplified and echoing. "What you've shown us is beyond talent. It's narrative, it's fire." Narrative, fire, the words sounded like currency. Jungkook's pulse thudded in his ears. "The final decision," the director continued, "is not simple, because the truth is, we don't want just one." A ripple of confusion spread through the room. "We are restructuring the showcase. It will be a dual concept. 2 artists, 1 stage, competing live. The audience will decide in real time who claims the final contract." The words dropped like a bomb. Jimin's head snapped slightly toward Jungkook. Jungkook's breath caught. A live competition, public, broadcast. They weren't choosing between them. They were selling their rivalry. Murmurs filled the auditorium. Cameras shifted focus. This was better than a solo act. This was spectacle. Jungkook felt heat crawl up his spine. "So we're gladiators now," he muttered under his breath. Jimin's lips curved faintly, but there was no amusement in his eyes. "Looks like it." The director smiled. "You two have a chemistry that's undeniable. Lean into it. The tension, the history, the audience loves authenticity." Authenticity. As if their friendship, their unspoken emotions, their fractures and fears were props. Backstage, the door slammed shut behind them. "This is insane," Jungkook snapped, packing. "They're turning us into a headline." Jimin leaned against the wall, arms folded. "You're surprised. They want us to fight. We are fighting." "That's not what I mean." Jimin pushed off the wall and stepped closer. "Then what do you mean?" Jungkook stopped packing. His eyes were sharp now, hurt simmering beneath anger. "They're going to twist everything, every look, every word. They'll make it ugly." "And what if it is ugly?" Jimin shot back. "What if we've been pretending it's not?" The accusation hung heavy. "You think I'm pretending?" Jungkook asked quietly. "I think you hate losing more than you love anything." The words hit harder than shouting. Jungkook's chest tightened. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Jimin's voice trembled just slightly now. "When we were trainees, when you didn't get center position, you didn't sleep for 2 nights. You trained until you collapsed. You said you'd rather break than be second. And you stayed with me," Jungkook said. "You told me I didn't have to prove myself. And you didn't listen." Silence fell between them, electric and raw. Jimin stepped closer, close enough that Jungkook could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "This stage isn't the problem," Jimin said, voice lower. "The problem is that if you lose to me, you'll think it means something about who you are." "And if you lose to me," Jungkook challenged. Jimin held his gaze. "I already know what it feels like to stand in your shadow." The confession cracked something open. Jungkook stared at him. "You've never been in my shadow." Jimin let out a humorless laugh. "That's easy for you to say." Memories surged, award speeches where Jungkook's name trended first, interviews that highlighted his golden image, comments comparing them, always comparing. "You think I don't notice," Jimin continued, "the way they call you the future, the prodigy, the standard." Jungkook's anger faltered, replaced by something heavier. "I never asked for that." "I know," Jimin's voice softened, "but it's there." The room felt smaller now. "This duel," Jimin said, "it's not just about a contract. It's about finally standing in front of you without the world deciding who's more." Jungkook's throat felt dry. "And if the world chooses me again?" Jimin's eyes flickered just for a second. Pain, fear, determination. "Then I'll survive it." The honesty burned. A knock at the door interrupted them. A manager's voice filtered through. Press conference in 10 minutes. They want you together. Of course they did. When they stepped onto the press stage, flashes exploded like fireworks. Questions flew immediately. Is it true you two requested this format? Are you still close? Has rivalry damaged your friendship? Jungkook forced a controlled smile. Jimin's expression was composed, but his fingers brushed briefly against Jungkook's wrist beneath the table, a grounding touch. Competition doesn't mean hostility, Jimin said into the microphone. It means growth. May the best performer win, Jungkook added. Their eyes met for half a second too long. The headline the next morning read, Best friends turned rivals, live duel 2 decide their fate. Social media erupted. Fans split into factions. Old clips resurfaced, dissected for tension. Every past glance reinterpreted as rivalry. It was working. Rehearsals for the duel were brutal. They were required to share the stage during certain segments, mirror choreography designed to highlight contrast, precision against power, control against instinct. During one run-through, Jungkook missed a cue. Jimin caught his wrist mid-spin to steady him. The touch lingered a fraction too long. Focus, Jimin murmured. You're distracting, Jungkook shot back. Is that my fault? Their choreographer clapped sharply, again. Sweat dripped down Jungkook's spine. The bass of the track vibrated through the floor. They moved again, closer this time, breaths colliding. In one sequence, their faces ended inches apart, music pulsing like a heartbeat. Are you scared? Jimin whispered so only Jungkook could hear. Of losing, Jungkook replied. Of wanting me to win. The music cut abruptly, but the silence that followed was louder. That night, long after everyone left, Jungkook remained in the darkened studio. The city lights shimmered through the windows. He replayed Jimin's words over and over. Footsteps approached softly. You're overthinking again, Jimin said from the doorway. Jungkook didn't turn. Why did you apply? Jimin walked in slowly, because I was tired of waiting. For what? For you to realize I don't want to follow, I want to stand beside you. Jungkook finally faced him. You already do. Not in your mind. The vulnerability in Jimin's voice was almost unbearable. I've spent years loving what we are, Jimin continued, quieter now, but I don't want to disappear inside it. Loving. The word slipped out so naturally that neither of them acknowledged it, yet it echoed in the space between them. Jungkook stepped closer. You won't disappear. How can you be sure? Because if you fall, Jungkook said, voice unsteady, I fall too. The confession hovered there, raw and unpolished. Jimin searched his face as if looking for doubt. He didn't find any. The duel was 3 days away. The world wanted blood, headlines, drama, a fracture they could package. But standing there, in the dim studio, city lights reflecting in their eyes, it became clear the real battle wasn't about outperforming each other. It was about whether they could survive the spotlight without letting it define their worth. Jimin reached out first this time, fingers curling lightly into the fabric of Jungkook's shirt. Not possession, not challenge. Anchor. If we burn, Jimin said softly, we burn bright. Jungkook's hand closed over Jimin's wrist, steady and sure. Then let's make sure it's our fire. Outside, somewhere beyond glass and concrete, the city roared on, unaware that the real wager had already shifted. It was no longer love versus ambition. It was love daring to exist in the middle of ambition without being consumed by it. The night of the live duel arrived dressed in blinding light and manufactured suspense. Backstage smelled like hairspray, heated metal, and adrenaline. Screens flickered everywhere, broadcasting the swelling crowd outside the arena. Tens of thousands of voices merged into a restless ocean, chanting names that once belonged to unity and now felt split down the center. Jungkook adjusted the in-ear monitor with steady hands that didn't match the storm inside him. Across the dressing room, Jimin sat before the mirror, eyeliner sharp, expression unreadable. The stylists had finished. The managers had given their final instructions. Now there was nothing left but silence and the truth breathing between them. "You okay?" Jungkook asked, his voice lower than the chaos outside. Jimin met his reflection first before looking at Jungkook directly. "Define okay." Jungkook exhaled faintly, terrified but pretending not to be. A corner of Jimin's mouth lifted. "Then yes, I'm okay." The screen on the wall showed a montage prepared by the company, clips of their trainee days, laughter, old performances, interviews where they promised to stay together no matter what. The edit ended with a dramatic split screen and bold letters, "Tonight, only one claims the future." Jungkook's jaw tightened. They really went all in. "They need a villain," Jimin replied quietly, "or a betrayal." "And which one are you supposed to be?" Jimin's eyes darkened slightly. "Depends on who wins." The words sat heavy. A stage manager knocked. 2 minutes. When the door closed again, the room shrank. Jungkook stepped forward first. "No matter what happens out there," he said, forcing steadiness into his tone, "don't let them rewrite us." Jimin stood. He was close enough now that Jungkook could see the faint tremor in his breath. "Then don't hesitate," Jimin whispered. "If you hold back for me, I'll never forgive you." Jungkook's heart thudded. "I won't." "Promise." "I promise." The roar of the crowd surged as their names were announced. They stepped onto opposite ends of the stage, separated by darkness. Then the lights exploded. The concept was brutal by design. Alternating solos, overlapping duets, a final segment where they would face each other head-on in choreography crafted to look almost combative. Every camera angle amplified tension. Every pause stretched for drama. Jimin began. The music was haunting, stripped down to piano and breath. He moved like heartbreak made visible, every extension deliberate, every glance cutting through the lens as if speaking directly to someone who had hurt him. The crowd quieted, drawn in by the intimacy. It wasn't flashy. It was surgical, controlled pain unfolding under white light. On the giant screen, his eyes glistened, not with weakness, with defiance. When the beat shifted, Jungkook stepped into the spotlight. His entrance was fire against silk. Percussion slammed through the arena, bass vibrating beneath thousands of feet. He moved with ferocity, jumps sharp, spins explosive, voice raw as he sang about hunger and fear and refusing to be overshadowed. The crowd screamed, the sound shaking the air. Back and forth they went. Grace against power, precision against instinct. The audience's cheers grew louder, divided, chaotic. Then came the duet. The stage darkened, except for a single narrow beam slicing down the center. They walked toward each other slowly, music pulsing like a heartbeat growing faster. When they met under the light, they didn't touch at first. They circled, movements mirrored, tension thick enough to choke on. Jimin's hand shot out, gripping Jungkook's wrist in choreography that looked almost violent. Jungkook twisted free, pulling Jimin close instead. Their faces hovered inches apart as they spun together, bodies aligned, breaths colliding. The script wanted rivalry. What it got was something dangerously intimate. "You're shaking," Jungkook murmured under the music. "From adrenaline," Jimin replied, though his fingers tightened slightly. "Or from me." Jimin's eyes flashed. "Don't start." The choreography shifted into the final sequence, push and pull, lifts that required complete trust. At one point, Jungkook had to fall backward without looking. Jimin was meant to catch him at the last second. For half a breath, Jungkook wondered what would happen if he didn't. Then he fell. Jimin caught him. The arena erupted. As they rose, foreheads almost touching, something cracked open between them. Not anger, not fear. "Truth." The music faded into silence. The host stepped onto the stage, smile gleaming. "It's time." Voting had been open during the performance, real-time results calculated. The giant screen behind them flickered with percentages climbing rapidly. Jungkook kept his eyes forward. Jimin's hand brushed briefly against his, unnoticed by cameras. The numbers slowed. 51%. 49%. The final tally froze. Jimin, 51%. The roar that followed was deafening. Confetti cannons exploded overhead in a blizzard of silver and white. Jimin stood motionless for half a second, processing. Jungkook felt something sharp and complicated tear through his chest. Disappointment, pride, relief, loss, love, so tangled it was impossible to separate. The host thrust the microphone toward Jimin. You've won the showcase contract. How does it feel to defeat your closest friend? Defeat? Jimin's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I didn't defeat him, Jimin said evenly. We built this stage together. The host turned to Jungkook. And you, any regrets? The arena held its breath. Jungkook swallowed the sting in his throat. He stepped closer to Jimin instead of away. No, he said clearly, because if anyone was going to win tonight, I'm glad it was him. Gasps rippled through the audience. Jimin's composure wavered for the first time. His eyes met Jungkook, searching. The host tried again, hungry for drama. Does this mean your partnership is over? Jungkook laughed softly, shaking his head. You really want that story, don't you? The crowd reacted, some cheering, some murmuring. Jimin took the microphone back. Ambition doesn't cancel love, he said, voice steady but thick with emotion. It tests it. The word hung there, undeniable now. Love. Not framed as friendship, not diluted. The internet would explode. Backstage, away from cameras and noise, the adrenaline finally crashed. Jungkook leaned against the wall, staring at the floor. He hadn't cried when the results were announced. He wouldn't now. Footsteps approached. Jimin stopped in front of him, trophy still in hand. You okay? Jimin asked softly. Jungkook huffed a faint breath. Define okay. Jimin set the trophy down on a nearby table without looking at it. I meant what I said. I know. Silence stretched. You should hate me a little, Jimin admitted. It would make this easier. Jungkook looked up sharply. Do you hate me? No. Then don't decide what I should feel. The tension between them shifted again, less sharp now, more vulnerable. Jimin stepped closer. I was scared, he confessed, not of losing, of winning. Jungkook blinked. Why? Because I thought it might create a line between us that we couldn't erase. Jungkook let out a shaky breath. It doesn't. You're sure? Jungkook reached forward suddenly, gripping Jimin's shirt the way Jimin had done nights before. Listen to me, I lost a contract, not you. The words were fierce, almost desperate. Jimin's composure shattered then. His hand came up, covering Jungkook over his chest. His heart was racing. They're going to tear this apart online, Jimin murmured. They'll say you carried me or that I betrayed you. Let them, Jungkook replied. We know the truth. And what is the truth? Jungkook hesitated only a second. That I don't want a stage where you're not somewhere in the light with me. Emotion flickered across Jimin's face. Shock, relief, something dangerously close to tears. You're impossible, Jimin whispered. And you're dramatic. A breath of laughter escaped them both, fragile but real. Outside the dressing room, the celebration continued. Inside, something steadier took root. Jimin picked up the trophy again, turning it over in his hands. This isn't the end, he said quietly. No, Jungkook agreed, it's not. Because the truth neither of them could ignore now was simple and terrifying. Winning hadn't broken them. But loving each other in the middle of ambition. That would be the real challenge. The morning after the duel did not feel victorious. It felt like war. Jungkook woke to the sharp vibration of his phone rattling against the nightstand. Sunlight cut through the curtains in pale lines, too bright for the heaviness pressing against his ribs. He didn't need to open social media to know what he would find. He could already feel it: division, noise, narratives crafted by strangers. Still, he looked. Headlines screamed across the screen. Jimin TOUMPHS was JUNGKOOK OUTSA Chinese. Rivalry confirmed, body language tells all. Love or strategy, the duel that broke a brotherhood. His jaw tightened. There were edited clips already circulating, slow-motion frames of the wrist grab during the duet, zoomed-in shots of Jungkook's expression when the final percentage appeared, comment sections dissecting every blink, every inhale. Some praised Jimin's artistry, others accused him of capitalizing on sympathy, some pitied Jungkook, others claimed he finally met his match. The narrative machine was ruthless. His phone buzzed again. Jimin. For a moment, Jungkook just stared at the name. Then he answered, "You've seen it." "Unfortunately," Jimin replied. His voice sounded steady, but there was something brittle underneath. "They're saying I manipulated the vote. They're saying I looked angry." "Were you?" Jungkook didn't answer immediately. "I was disappointed," he said at last, "but not at you." There was a quiet exhale on the other end. "They're digging up old interviews," Jimin continued. "Clips where I joked about wanting to beat you one day. They're turning it into proof." "Proof of what? That you're human." "Proof that I've been waiting for this." Jungkook sat up, running a hand through his hair. "Have you?" "Silence. Be honest," he pressed. Jimin's voice lowered. "Part of me has, I won't lie about that." The honesty strung, but it didn't surprise him. "I've spent years standing next to you," Jimin continued. "I love standing next to you, but sometimes I wanted to know what it would feel like to stand ahead." The words weren't cruel, they were vulnerable. Jungkook swallowed. "And now you do." "Yes, and it's lonelier than I thought." That hit harder than any headline. A knock sounded at Jungkook's door. A manager's voice filtered through, urgent. "Emergency meeting in 30 minutes, both of you." Jungkook sighed. "They're going to capitalize on this." "Of course they are," Jimin said softly. "Drama sells." The meeting room felt colder than usual. Executives lined one side of the table, tablets open, graphs and engagement metrics glowing on screens. A giant chart displayed overnight follower growth, trending hashtags, global engagement spikes. "You two broke the internet," one executive said, almost gleeful. "This is bigger than we projected." Jungkook crossed his arms. "Congratulations." The executive ignored the edge in his tone. "We want to lean into it. Teaser interviews, subtle tension, a behind-the-scenes documentary highlighting the strain." Jimin's eyes sharpened. "Strain." "Yes, the rivalry angle is compelling. The audience is emotionally invested. If we frame this as a fractured bond under pressure." "No," Jungkook cut in. The room stilled. The executive's smile thinned. "Excuse me." "We are not your soap opera," Jungkook said evenly. Another executive interjected smoothly. "You signed performance contracts. Media participation is included." Jimin leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "Participation doesn't mean fabrication." "We wouldn't fabricate," the first executive replied. "We'd simply highlight what's already there." "What's already there?" Jungkook repeated quietly. "You mean our personal lives?" The executive's gaze sharpened. "Public perception is part of your career." Jimin's fingers curled on the table. "So is trust." A tense silence followed. Finally, the CEO spoke, voice measured. "We are offering you both longevity, individual branding. This rivalry, if managed correctly, could elevate you to international icons. But icons require narrative tension." Jungkook exchanged a glance with Jimin. "Narrative tension." The phrase tasted bitter now. What if we refuse? Jungkook asked. The CEO didn't blink. Then you risk losing momentum, and momentum is everything in this industry. It was not a threat, it was worse. It was truth. Outside the building, reporters had already gathered. Cameras flashed as they exited together. Questions flew like arrows. Jimin, do you feel guilty? Jungkook, do you plan to challenge the results? Is this the end of your partnership? Jungkook felt heat rise in his chest. Jimin stopped walking. The sudden pause startled everyone. He turned toward the cameras directly. You want conflict, Jimin said clearly, but what you saw on that stage was two people pushing each other to be better, not enemies. A reporter shouted, then why haven't you congratulated him publicly before today? The question sliced clean. Jungkook felt dozens of lenses shift toward him. Because I was trying to process losing, he wanted to say. Because I'm human. Instead, he stepped beside Jimin. I congratulated him privately, Jungkook replied. Some things don't need an audience. The statement exploded online within minutes. By evening, hashtags multiplied. Private congrats, what are they hiding? Secret rift. Speculation grew more invasive. Old photos were reanalyzed. A fan theory thread accused Jungkook of resenting Jimin for years. Another claimed Jimin had orchestrated the duel to step out permanently. By midnight, a leaked audio clip surfaced. A blurry recording from backstage, the night of the duel. Jimin's voice, you should hate me a little. Jungkook's voice, I lost a contract, not you. The clip cut there. The internet erupted. Some called it romantic, others called it manipulative. Commentators debated tone, inflection, hidden meaning. Jungkook's phone buzzed non-stop. He called Jimin immediately. You heard it, Jungkook said. Yes. It was private. I know. Anger simmered now, sharper than before. They're violating us. Jimin's voice trembled faintly for the first time. They're dissecting every word. They're saying I guilted you. Jungkook's chest tightened. Did you? The question slipped out before he could stop it.